stark images show how buildings have lain untouched since they were devastated by the huge Beirut port explosion 1 year ago. The once bustling Port of Beirut in Lebanon's capital is now largely deserted by locals who are still reeling from the blast that killed at least 214 people and injured a further 7,000. The haunting images reveal the inside of abandoned buildings in large parts of the city, once known as the Paris of the Middle East, which still lie in ruins, with huge crater-sized holes visible in the floors and peeling ceilings. They were damaged in the blast, which was triggered when a fire at a port warehouse ignited tons of highly explosive ammonium nitrate fertilizer that had been haphazardly stored alongside fireworks and rolls of detonating cord. The floor is still largely missing in one room of Dinawi Palace, exposing old wooden beams crossing the now empty space. The intricately detailed roof now has holes in it which allows sunlight to stream into the room as the wallpaper peels away from the pink walls. The buildings have lain untouched as many fled rather than try to rebuild. Such are the scale of Lebanon's problems: a currency in freefall, rampant corruption, shortages of medicine, fuel and clean water, and ruled by a political class which has left the country without a functioning government for a year while also claiming immunity from prosecution over the explosion. The hotel's swimming pool now lays empty and cracked. More than 800 buildings in the huge area of Beirut was affected by the blast, with even houses furthest away on the outskirts of the city suffering major to minor damages. Photographer Roman Raab, who captured the devastation, said, "Today, citizens and residents are still struggling to gather material and cash for repairing the damage that was caused." While a few homes and public spots have been recovered for being safe and accessible for public visits, the city is still putting all its efforts and facing daily struggles to revive its spirit. Some of the greatest damage in Beirut was on its arts and culture scene. The famous Jemizeh and Garo Street, once home to the city's hub of restaurants and bars, and one of the most popular neighborhoods in the area, is now piles of rubble. UNESCO's preliminary damage assessment to the area recorded damage to around 640 historical buildings, including 160-year-old Sarsak Palace, legendary Lebanese singer Fairuz's childhood home, and the Dinawi Palace. Roman added, although today the city is trying hard to get to its original condition, most of these artistic, cultural, and historical spots are yet to be renewed or rebuilt after the major and minor damages. It was saddening to witness most buildings and spots still carry the worst of their destruction with the hope to be revived soon. The Beirut blast, one of the world's largest non-nuclear explosions, struck around 6 p.m. on August 4, 2020 as commuters were making their way home from work. smoke already hung over the city's port after welding work at one of the warehouses sparked a fire which emergency crews had been trying to put out. A stream of black smoke drifting over the port suddenly turned gray and thickened, rising straight up into the air and attracting the attention of residents, some of whom trained their cameras on the plume. Moments later, a huge explosion sent a visible shockwave racing across the city, crumpling warehouses and ships in the port, shattering the windows of nearby skyscrapers, and knocking people off their feet. The explosion was so large that it could be felt in Cyprus, 180 miles away across the Mediterranean. It soon emerged in documents that the highly combustible nitrates had been haphazardly stored at the port since 2014 and that multiple high-level officials over the years knew of its presence and did nothing. A year later, there has been no accountability, and the investigation has yet to answer questions such as who ordered the shipment of the chemicals and why officials ignored repeated internal warnings of their danger.